Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. So, as I study this Torah portion this week, I often think about a wooden play set of Noah's Ark that Andy and I bought for the boys when they were young. I had a little Noah and a Na'amah and a plank to go up into the Ark and little wooden animals. And of course, the boys being rather active, by the time Yasmin came along, those pieces had been turned into other things. So she didn't get the enjoyment of playing with Noah's Ark. They were transformed into other imaginative pieces of wood. But I do try and warn parents that Noah's Ark in the Torah is very different to Noah's Ark in the board book. And this week's Torah portion, in many ways, begins in a world of trauma, in a world that has become so corrupted, so violent, that God, creator of that world, is ready to abandon and destroy it. That's how bad it had got. Towards the end of the Torah portion is another just as famous biblical story, the story of the construction of the Tower of Babel, Migdal Babel, which also, this is about language, this is about ziggurats in Mesopotamia and how it was that the world spoke in many languages. I think that there is a way to connect those two stories that has something very powerful that we can learn from the way that they are placed at the beginning and ends of the Torah portion, and what happens just sneaks in the very last verse. Why do I say this? Well, at the beginning of the Torah portion, we have humanity that has sunk so low that it is out of control. There is nothing that can hold it. There are no rules, there is no social structure, there is no way to judge what is right and what is wrong. And the anarchy has led to the world falling apart. At the end of the Torah portion, you have the opposite. You have a community post-flood that is so organized, so structured, so united, that every single person knows exactly what they have to do. Project to build a tower that will reach to the heavens, to the point where the individual is not as important as the collective. So at the beginning of the Torah portion, you have what happens if individuals all do whatever they want to do without any sense of social structure, norms, guidance, laws. No unifying factor whatsoever. And at the end of the Torah portion, you have what happens if unity takes over individuality to the point where the project is more important than the people that make the project up. Ultimately, these are two of the greatest challenges of human living. How do we balance the needs of individuals with the needs of community? How do we create structures and laws that allow us to get along and not butt up against each other too badly, that we can't repair from, but at the same time allow people to be individuals, to be able to stretch themselves in what makes us unique and different and diverse, to the point where if that is crushed or restrained too much, then we end up with uniformity that would A, make it very difficult to have a sense of human rights, and B, would be pretty boring. Where does the middle lie? And why does the Torah bring these stories at the beginning and the end of the Torah portion of Noach? So I need to remind us that neither Noah nor the people in the Tower of Babel were Jewish. This is pre-Jewish history. The Torah is not just concerned with Jews. It is a Jewish book, but it's not just concerned with Jews. It's concerned with the history of the world. And what we presented with here in this prehistory is maybe the attempts that God makes over the 10 generations between Adam and Noah, and then the 10 generations between Noah and Abraham and Sarah, to construct, to try to shape what society should and could look like. And that's where I said the little sneak at the end of the Torah portion comes in. We know that next week's Torah portion begins with the famous instruction from God to Abraham, Lech lecha me'artzecha me'moladetecha el ha'aretz asher areka. Go, leave the land of your parents, the land of your birthplace where you grew up, to a land that I will show you. And I will make you a blessing, and your people will be a blessing. But at the end of this week's Torah portion, there is a little coda, the last two verses. Vayikach terach et Avram beno, ve'et Lot ben Haran ben beno, ve'et Sarai kalato. And Terach took his son Avram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, and they leave Ur to go to the land of Canaan. A journey is already set in motion at the end of last week's Torah portion, and one wonders, why isn't this the beginning of next week? Why don't we start with the journey that Avram's family began? Because somewhere along the way, it froze. Terach never makes it to Canaan. And in next week's Torah portion, Abraham and Sarah are the ones to make that journey. They're the ones who begin the Jewish project that we live today, 4,000 years later. So, possibly, what I can suggest is that somewhere between there should be no laws and every person does whatever they want, disaster, corruption, violence, to the law is incredibly strict on every individual, knowing what they need to do every moment of every day, and if they divert from it, they will be punished. Somewhere between those two lies the Jewish project. What does it mean to get the balance between being an individual and being part of community? It's so much part of Jewish life to be part of the community. Isn't that one of the richest gifts that we give to ourselves and to each other? We're not just alone, we're not just families, we're part of the Jewish community. And sometimes, being part of the Jewish community, we are called to be united. Beautiful. Be united. But also be an individual. How do we get that balance right? Very difficult. So I want to bless us all this Shabbos to recognize the tension that pulls between individual and community, and to recognize that built into the system is the understanding that that is hard to get right, but it is so important to have both, to have the pull towards being part of something that is greater than ourselves, showing up, being there. And at the same time, we need to be able to walk our path, to be ourselves, to do what we need to do and say what we need to say. And that's going to cause some upset and some tension. May we be blessed with the patience and the compassion and the open-heartedness to be able to get that balance right. Good Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. At this moment, we pray for those who are looking for healing in their lives, and those who are thinking of people that they love that are in need of healing. On page 471, we'll